Okay, task 2, and this is going to actually go with two different rubrics, rubric 12 and 13. Feedback to guide further learning. The point is here that you basically want to give students information that they can use. You also, the second part of it is you want to give the students opportunities to use that, either incentives, space, or time. So you refer to your evidence that you put on the student work samples. If you wrote it down, if you are giving it to the whole class in a video, you can do that. If you are just taping conversations of how you give feedback to students, use that. Right? If you're having student conferences, make sure you're referring to that evidence. So first thing, identify the format. Right? You have these three different options. And then, of course, if video audio clip occurs in a group context, clearly describe how the score can identify the focus student, right? Because that's who you are going to be focusing your discussion and what you write on. Explain how feedback provided to the three focus students, again, focus on these students, addresses their individual strengths and needs relative to the learning objectives measured. Again, these three focus students are really just concrete examples of different types of students. And I think that it's important to mention that occasionally, right? That, this, when I'm talking about how my feedback is going to help this student, I would throw in a little thing about other students of this type receive similar feedback, and I did exercises X, Y, and Z, or assign them, or worked with them to complete those particular tasks. Part C, describe how you will support each focus student to understand and use this feedback to further their learning related to learning objectives, either within the learning segment or at a later time. So basically, how are you going to get students to use this? You're giving you got the information, like you're the doctor, you know what's wrong. You're giving them a prescription, you're giving them some therapy, you're giving them some medication. How are you going to get them to use it? Are you going to, walk them through it together? Are you going to give them independent time? What kind of incentives are you using for those students who aren't motivated? These are the essential questions you are asking, or you are being asked to answer. So when we look at the rubrics, right, we're looking at rubric 12 first, providing feedback to guide further learning. A 3 is feedback is specific and addresses either needs or strengths related to the learning objectives. Again, everything has to be related to the learning objectives. Again, the bar is set really low here. They ask you to do both. It seems like they're okay if you do one or the other, which is odd to me. Level 4, feedback is specific. Again, it needs to be specific. You need to get on those specific problems that target the related skills, what went wrong with the related skills, and how you can fix it. Also targeting what went right with those related skills. What is the student doing really, really well at? And then even how they can extend that even further, right? But do it in a way that it still is complementary. So it addresses both strengths and needs related to the learning objectives. Level 5 plus, feedback for one or more of focus students provides a strategy to address an individual learning need or makes connections to prior learning or experience to improve learning. Again, they're asking you to do this. So I don't know why you wouldn't. I think this is always a pretty easy thing to do, right? Because in your initial lesson plan, you broke down this complicated skill into this sequence, this learning progression, this series of steps. And first you do A to get to B, to get to C, to get to D, to get to E, right? You will have assessments that tell you whether or not people are succeeding or failing or struggling or coasting through, right? The last thing you have to do then is, if you see something's wrong, you need to have a plan B for them to work on, because what you did the first time didn't really work. You need a strategy that you can talk to them about that will help them with their learning. And you either just need to provide that strategy, or you need to make connections to other things they know about are other experiences that they've had so they get it, right? You're giving them feedback that they consider, and you're tying it into other things that they're successful at. And again, this seems, because they're asking you to do it directly, seems like it shouldn't be that difficult. If we look at a 2, right, feedback is general and addresses needs and or strengths. Oops. If we look at a level 1, feedback is unrelated to the learning objectives or developmentally inappropriate or contains inaccuracy, or no feedback is provided to one or more focus students. Why would you turn in something like that? Doesn't make sense. The second rubric, student use of feedback, right? And this is one actually I don't really get, because a 5 in this rubric here is really more, or very similar to what rubric 13 is all about. Level 3, candidate describes how focus students will understand or use feedback related to the learning objective, right? Basically, what are they going to do with this, and how is it going to help them? A 4 is candidate describes how she will support focus students to understand and use feedback on their strengths or weaknesses related to the learning targets. Again, when we look at 5, right, feedback for one or more students provides a strategy to address an individual learning or makes connections. That's kind of the same thing as what you're doing right here. A 5 is candidate describes how she will support focus students to understand and use feedback on their strengths and weaknesses related to the learning objectives. Again, more of what a level 5 is right here. I didn't make these things. I just think that's a little redundant. Probably could be combined into one rubric. But then they wouldn't have a nice 15, 5 in each section. So the next thing is students' evidence of language, understanding, and use, and that's what we'll be in the next video.